know that most of what you've seen, read, or heard about Billy the Kid is untrue? My name is Gail Cooper. I'm a medical doctor and forensic psychiatrist. My specialty is murder case consultation for the defense. For 20 years, I've used my expertise to uncover the real Billy the Kid. Researching over 40,000 pages of archival documents and books, I've written the revisionist history. It's shocking, it's liberating, and I've written books demolishing the hoaxes, hijacking the history. My talks will share with you what I've found. Cover-ups, misinformation, and fakery, to use Old West lingo, will bite the dust. This revisionist history talk is about the Billy the Kid moniker invented by Billy Bonney's enemies for his outlaw myth. The information is from my book, The Lost Pardon of Billy the Kid, an analysis factoring in the Santa Fe Ring, Governor Lew Wallace's dilemma, and a territory in rebellion. A misconception is that Billy the Kid was Billy Bonney's alias. That implies that he used it himself. It was actually devised by his Santa Fe Ring enemies, promoted by his pardon's betrayer, Lew Wallace, and used by his killer, Pat Garrett, to sell his 1882 book, The Authentic Life of Billy the Kid. For real Billy, the moniker would have been an anathema, a symbol of his unjust outlawing. Billy's real alias was William Bonney. His names reflect his traumatic life. He was possibly the illegitimate child of a Michael McCarty and was called Henry McCarty till he was 13 and a half. Then his mother, Catherine, whose last name is unknown, married a William Henry Harrison Antrim in Santa Fe. Billy became Henry Antrim. Heartless Antrim, however, abandoned him to homelessness when his mother died of TB the following year. As Billy wrote to Governor Wallace on March 13, 1879, in his first pardon plea letter, "I'm called Kid Antrim, but Antrim is my stepfather's name." He created his identity-hiding alias, William Henry Billy Bonney, after his August 17, 1877 killing of a bullying blacksmith in Arizona and flight back to New Mexico territory. Bonney may have been his Irish mother's maiden name. Billy knew the Billy the Kid moniker was used against him. In his December 12, 1880 letter to Governor Lew Wallace, he wrote, "I noticed in the Las Vegas Gazette a piece which stated that Billy the Kid, the name by which I'm known in the country, was the captain of a band of outlaws. There is no such organization in existence." The moniker's root was benign. When Billy came to Lincoln County in October of 1877 to work as a ranch hand for John Tunstall, he was just 17, so other employees called him Kid. Governor Lew Wallace started its darker use in his March 31, 1879 letter to Secretary of the Interior Carl Schurz. Though Wallace had just made the pardon bargain with Billy, which included sham imprisonment, he likely intended its betrayal. So he betrayed Billy as a random criminal. He wrote, "A precious specimen nicknamed the Kid, whom the sheriff is holding here in the plaza, is an object of tender regard. I heard singing and music the other night. I found the minstrels of the village actually serenading the fellow in his prison." The full moniker, Billy the Kid, appeared first in the 1879 Fort Stanton Military Court of Inquiry of Fort Stanton Commander N.A.M. Dudley for illegal intervention in the Lincoln County War battle, causing murder of Alexander McSween and arson of his home. On May 23rd, Susan McSween, who filed the charges, testified that she heard him say, "Billy the Kid." Since Dudley was ring beholden, he must have heard the ring's early outlaw myth. Susan described going to his camp to plead for protection. She stated, "He then got very angry and said that he would send his soldiers where he pleased and that I had no such business to have such men as Billy the Kid in my house." On May 28th, Billy testified about seeing Dudley's soldiers fire a volley at him and others fleeing the burning McSween house. He showed his confusion about the new moniker. His questioning by the prosecutor is as follows. "What is your name and place of residence?" "My name is William Bonney." "Are you known or called Billy Kidd, spelled Kidd, also Antrim?" "Yes, sir." Dudley's attorney later questioned, "Are you also known as the Kid?" "I've already answered that question. Yes, sir, I am, but not Billy Kidd that I know of." In late 1880, Billy was pursued by a Secret Service operative named Azariah Wild. Wild was fed the outlaw myth by ring-eyed handlers who told him that Billy headed a counterfeiting rustling gang. On October 5th, Wild garbled the moniker in his report to his chief, writing, "William Antrim, alias William Bonney, alias Billy Kidd, is an outlaw in the mountains here who came here from Arizona after committing a murder there." Wild left the territory in late December, but by January 2nd, 1881, his report from New Orleans showed he'd mastered the moniker. He wrote, "Information on the arrest of William Wilson, William Antrim, alias Billy the Kid, with several members of their gang by Deputy U.S. Marshal Patrick F. Garrett has reached me." On December 3, 1880, the Ring began its outlaw myth press against Billy using leaked information from Operative Wild. The Las Vegas Gazette article was by owner-editor J.H. Kugler and titled "Powerful Gang of Outlaws Harassing the Stockmen." It stated the gang includes 40 to 50 men. The gang is under the leadership of Billy the Kid, a desperate cuss who is eligible for the post of captain in any crowd, no matter how mean and lawless. Billy read that article. On December 12th, he wrote to Lew Wallace denying its lies. He showed that by then he knew the moniker, calling it Billy the Kid, the name by which I am known in the country. On December 22nd, when Lew Wallace placed his first reward offer in the Las Vegas Gazette, it was for Billy the Kid, proving he believed the moniker's universal recognition by then. He wrote, "Billy the Kid, $500 reward." That same December 22nd, Billy gained national fame as Billy the Kid in a ring-eyed New York Sun article titled "Outlaws of New Mexico, the Exploits of a Band Headed by a New York Youth, the Mountain Fastness of the Kid and His Followers." It stated, "The leaders are Billy the Kid, so called from his youth, Dave Rudabaugh, Billy Wilson, and Tom O'Phalliard, meaning O'Phalliard." On December 27th, the ring-eyed Las Vegas Gazette's article by Lucius Lute Wilcox was about Billy Stinking Springs' capture. It was titled "The Kid, Interview with Billy Bonney, the best-known man in New Mexico." Described was Billy and the other captives getting new clothes at the Las Vegas jail. It stated, "Billy the Kid and Billy Wilson stood patiently while a blacksmith took off their shackles and bracelets to allow them an opportunity to make a change of clothing." The same December 27th, ring-eyed Russell A. Kistler reported the capture in his Las Vegas Daily Optic as a big haul. Billy the Kid, Dave Rudabaugh, Billy Wilson, and Tom Pickett in the clutches of the law, notorious gang of outlaws broken up. It stated, "Our readers are familiar with the depredations committed by a gang of daring desperados under the leadership of Billy the Kid." On April 3, 1881, the Santa Fe Ring Daily New Mexican, in Something About the Kid, described Billy's transport from the Santa Fe jail to Mesilla. It gave an anecdote with Billy joking about the moniker. At Las Cruces, a crowd gathered around the stagecoach. It stated, "Someone asked, 'Which is Billy the Kid?' The Kid himself answered by placing his hand on his attorney Judge Leonard's shoulder and saying, 'This is the man.'" End quote. Billy's attorney, Ira Leonard, was in fact bald and middle-aged. On May 3rd, after Billy's April 28, 1881 jailbreak, Lew Wallace repeated his reward offer, this time in the Santa Fe Daily New Mexican, again for Billy the Kid. On May 16, 1881, Wallace published a St. Louis Daily Globe Democrat article, "The Thug's Territory." The interviewer stated, "The governor gave a very interesting sketch of the life of Billy the Kid, the most noted and desperate character in New Mexico." On June 18, 1881, the Crawfordsville Saturday Evening Journal published Wallace's article titled, "Billy the Kid. General Wallace tells why the young desperado of New Mexico wanted to kill him. A dashing and daring career in the land of the petulant pistol." It stated, "Newspaper accounts of the exploits of Billy the Kid, the New Mexico outlaw, have made him the chief among frontier desperados." In 1882, Billy's killer, Pat Garrett, featured the then famous moniker and outlaw myth to sell his book titled "The Authentic Life of Billy the Kid." The December 10, 1893 San Francisco Chronicle carried a Lew Wallace interview titled "Lew Wallace's Foe." It stated, "The governor's enemy was no less a personage than the illustrious Billy the Kid, than whom no man had ever excited more terror on the frontier." On January 6, 1894, Wallace gave a weekly Crawfordsville Review interview as Street Pickings. It stated, "When I was governor of New Mexico, that territory was terrorized by bands of daring and murderous outlaws, at the head of whom was the famous border desperado, Billy the Kid." On June 23, 1900, for the Indianapolis Press, Wallace presented General Wallace's Feud with Billy the Kid, when the general was governor of New Mexico and Billy Bonney was the most dangerous Western outlaw. Wallace stated, "I will never lose the image of Billy the Kid as I saw him that midnight in old Santa Fe back in 1879. It was not long until Billy the Kid became the most daring and notorious of desperados." On June 8, 1902, for New York World magazine, Wallace was interviewed for General Lew Wallace Writes a Romance of Billy the Kid. It stated, "The most thrilling chapter in Lew Wallace's autobiography then in progress tells of the midnight meeting between General Wallace, at the time governor of the territory of New Mexico, and Billy the Kid, the most notorious outlaw the Far West has ever produced." Lew Wallace died in 1905. His wife completed his autobiography in 1906. She inserted her May 11, 1879 letter to their son, Henry, parroting Wallace's outlaw myth. She wrote, "We hold our lives at the mercy of desperados and outlaws, chief among them Billy the Kid, whose boast is that he has killed a man for every year of his life." In 1927, Pat Garrett's The Authentic Life of Billy the Kid was republished. By the 1930s, the Billy the Kid moniker was synonymous with Billy, being used by anyone writing about him. In 1934, George Coe, Billy's friend and fellow regulator, as an old-timer, published Frontier Fighter, the autobiography of George Coe, who fought and rode with Billy the Kid. In 1955, as an old-timer, Teddy Blue Abbott, who never met Billy, published We Pointed Them North, Recollections of a Cowpuncture. He wrote, "The Lincoln County troubles was still going on, and you had to be either for Billy the Kid or against him." Later talks, exposing Billy the Kid imposter hoaxes, will show how lying old-timers claiming to be Billy called themselves Billy the Kid, ignorant of what that hated symbol of the outlaw myths meant to real Billy Bonney.